Welcome to the Uncommon CEO podcast, where we unpack the mindset, skills, and wisdom it takes to become an uncommon leader in a common world. With your host, the Uncommon CEO himself, Andrew Smart.
So, back to another episode of the Uncommon CEO podcast. I'm here with Andrew. Andrew, you were just talking about the latest show you've been watching.
If you remember in our last podcast, we talked about time and management, right?
Mm-hmm.
Matt, have you ever got into a show that you can't stop watching?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it just kind of sucks you in.
Mm-hmm.
Many people, when Game of Thrones were out, or I remember the first time that I did this was when 24 came out.
Oh, and that one, every episode links to the next.
Yeah, that's right. It's like they
leave
leave you on a cliffhanger every single time. And the funny part about that was that's back. I remember with 24, it wasn't like today where everything's digital. I had the DVDs.
Oh, yeah. I had the Sopranos DVDs back then.
Sopranos, same way. Oh, gosh. I mean, I think I can make it one more.
Mm-hmm. You check the bedtime.
Right.
You're like, 11:45.
And if you get into any type of show with your partner, you're both like looking at each other. Think we can do it?
Just another half episode. Yeah.
Episode. And so that happened when we were going through Game of Thrones, because we didn't start Game of Thrones. They were about 3 seasons in.
Yep. Yeah. Once the buzz finally caught up, I'm like, I guess I got to watch this show.
Right.
Boy, we got sucked in.
Well, same. So looking at that, that time management piece really led me over to thinking on a different topic.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between, management is what we talked about in our time and ourselves and managing ourselves. And then I thought about the word ownership. Okay. I got into a show recently. I got sucked into a show that's now on Netflix. It's an older show, came out in 2011, went 8 seasons. So,
okay.
And it was the show Suits.
Okay. I haven't seen it yet.
It's a pretty good show. It takes a really good show to kind of suck me in.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the main characters we know is Meghan Markle, who is married to
I've heard of her,
Prince Harry.
Mm-hmm.
She plays a good role in the show, but the show centers around you've got this really high-performing, kind of egotistic lawyer that works for this firm that represents high-level clients.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in the firm are all Harvard grads, so it's a Harvard-based firm. You can't even become part of it without going to Harvard. So that's one of the main characters. The other main character is this guy who is extremely intelligent, and he has a amazing photographic memory.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he starts out the show as a guy who is basically going around and taking the LSAT for people.
Okay.
So he'll go into and people pay him and he'll go take the test. Well, he gets into a little situation and ends up connecting with the other main character, the other main guy, who is the kind of the ego-driven lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this situation, he ends up basically coming to work for him, even though the guy hasn't graduated Harvard, but he's extremely smart. He has passed the law. I mean, he's passed the bar exam.
Just for other people, yeah.
But for himself too.
Yeah,
So he did it for himself. It's so he is legally a lawyer. He just didn't go to Harvard. Well, I really, really liked getting into this show. But there was an episode of this show that kind of hit home for me. The episode starts out with a young lady getting in trouble. She worked for like this hedge fund company and did investments, and she got in trouble because she made an investment into. Basically, they had a limit on what you can make investments.
Mm-hmm.
Well, every day they would give all their different investors these sheets of, okay, here's what we want you to play, here's what we want to look at buying, and then work that sheet. Well, she made an investment beyond the limit, and basically it was almost kind of like an insider track deal.
Sure.
And so she ends up getting in legal trouble, and the company is firing her. She gets in legal trouble. But all she did was what she was told.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't look like that. Okay, it looks like she just went on her own and did this. And so the main character who's representing the company, he's working on making sure the company is good. And the other guy, who's the smart guy who passed the LSATs and cheated on the LSATs, he kind of gets to liking this girl and believes her story that she didn't know what she was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Comes to find in the end of the episode, they figure out, okay, basically the CEO, not the owner, the CEO or you call him a director of ops, maybe. The operational head.
Mm-hmm.
They've realized that he suckered her in, meaning like he tricked her and gave her a wrong sheet to make these bids because he had insider trading.
Oh, okay.
And if it worked, great. If it didn't, he wouldn't take the fall. She'd take the fall. So the main lawyer guy who represents the company is talking to the owner and this guy. And when he starts, going into everything, he turns to the guy who did the stuff. He said, "You're the reason this went down. And so the owner listens to it and he tells Bill, whatever his name is, "You're fired."
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Well, you can't do that." I'm like, "Yeah, I can. You're fired." And he gets out. And so the owner then, once the guy's gone, turns to the head lawyer and he goes, "Man, I want you to know, I didn't know anything about this." And that guy turns back to the owner and go, "You see, that's the problem. It's your job to know about it."
Mm-hmm.
And I took that like, man, that was like a little bit of a gut punch to me.
Sure.
Yeah, as a reflective person who often talks about, hey, ownership. You got to take ownership. You got to take ownership of this project. You got to take, ownership of this team. You got to do, and I preach this stuff. I mean, I remember, last year I did a talk after reading the book Extreme Ownership.
Mm-hmm.
That great leaders understand what it takes to take ownership. Well, I don't know what it was in watching that show. And when he turned to that owner, saying, "Well, I didn't know." And he goes, "It's your job to know." I reflected back and I thought, damn, how many times has situations come up in my life and especially in business and there are issues that happen and that weren't great. And I've gone back to, well, I wasn't informed. I didn't know. I can think of a good many.
Same here.
I can think of some bad players that I had in the business that if I reflect back while they did some bad stuff, really I look back on myself and I'm like, golly, maybe if I'd have asked a question or worked on somebody, I would have found that situation out.
Yeah, it's the whole hindsight is 20/20 type of thing, but hindsight is only dictated by the actions you took at the time.
It is. Now, here's the thing that I've always said, and I believe this and live this. I don't make all the decisions in our organization.
Sure.
That's not what I do. Okay, I've never believed in micromanagement. I don't think micromanagement works.
Nope.
Okay, what I believe in is leadership. Okay, and leadership is ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and owning things look, because I don't make all those decisions, I'm responsible for all those decisions.
Yeah,
and many people don't get that. They don't get that they're responsible. There's a story also, and it's what led to this statement that he makes to the owner. The other guy who was the smart guy that took the LSAT, he asked the main character kind of a similar story that said, "Well, why did you say that to him?" Mm-hmm. He said, "Well, let me tell you a story. When I was a kid, we had this bully, and this bully would go around, picking on people. And he said, I made a decision to stand up to this bully.
Mm-hmm.
And after the fight and everything settled down, the father of the bully, would later say, I had no idea my son was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he said, it's your job to know. Think about that. Think about that in life. I mean, you're a father. I'm a father. It is our job to know what our children are doing.
Yeah.
It is our job to know who they associate with, what they're reading, what they're watching. That's our job.
Yeah. None of it should be much of a surprise.
No. And if it is, it's a failure on us because we're not owning our responsibility in it.
Yep.
I mean, if Drew and Claire, are doing something they shouldn't be doing, and I don't know about it, it's my job to know about it. It's my job to find out about it. It's my job to question things.
Mm-hmm.
And leaders understand that. It is their job. If my job is to be ultimately responsible for everyone in this organization, then it is my job to ask questions.
Yeah. And understand the varying levels and roles of leadership. I had a conversation with one of my teammates yesterday that struggled to understand why sometimes they may have input, but a different decision gets made at the end of the day. That it's the job of each level of leadership to have to own those decisions. And if those decisions don't always agree with either the information given or what other teammates' opinions are, they still have the onus of that ownership at the end of the day. And, your job is to inform your leadership team of what you feel is the best decision. And if they have the opportunity and need to make that decision, they have to own it.
The higher you go in leadership, the more you got to own.
Yeah, that's the truth.
And too many people don't understand that. Look, if you ask a lot of people, hey, would I like to be a CEO? Would I like to be this level executive? Would I be? Most people go, yeah. Very few people would say, no, I'd never want to do that. And the reason why a lot of people say that is because they think about, well, I got power and influence. I got money, the prestige. They look at all the good.
Mm-hmm. It can be lonely at the top, though.
It is lonely at the top. I remember studying, John Maxwell at a young age, and he would say a statement like this. He goes, it is lonely at the top, but if you're an effective leader who takes ownership, it's not lonely because you're alone, because you're leading people and you're influencing people. What's lonely about it is you're responsible for decisions.
Yeah, and you've got to...
The buck stops here. At the end of the day, the buck stops here. If I got to answer to the bank, Matt, you can't go. I got to answer to the bank. Why did we do well? Why did we not do well? I can't go and say, well, so-and-so just didn't do their job. Or even worse, I don't know.
No kidding.
Literally, ownership, okay? Accountability. That, I've recognized that more in my life, and I look at my life and I see most of my biggest failures were right in that zone where I knew to do something and I didn't do it. For instance, I've made a decision and taking ownership and managing myself more, that every week I'm going to be down at the plant working with the team, doing walkthroughs, talking about stuff that every week.
I've noticed, yeah.
Not every once in a while, every week. Next week I'm out of town. I've made this decision. I do it every Wednesday. That I can't be there on Wednesday, but I'm going to be there on Monday.
Yep.
And so, because I have learned that's some of my failure. I know my presence matters. I know that, that being able, because I know our industry and what we do so well, there's things I can walk in, see, ask questions, hear feedback, but also challenge and put expectations. A team you work with. Last week I was in the plant.
I know.
You heard about that, didn't you?
I did hear about that.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what I did yesterday? I was so damn proud of them.
I know. They told me.
I was. And for our listener to understand, Matt works with R&D teams down there. And so I go into our R&D area, an area that, that's important. And we bring customers in just like we do with the rest of the plant. And I'm like, man, I just don't like how this looks. And I talked to them there and I said, look, not everything that's wrong in here is something that's in your control. But there are things in your control. And I want you to look at it and I want you to say, am I taking ownership of this area? This is my area of influence. This is where I work every day. You know, it's like going home. You know, if you go home every day and it's a damn mess, you know, it means you're living in chaos.
Oh yeah. No, but you can't function in chaos.
But we try to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I said, look, take pride here. You know, let's get some stainless steel cleaner over here. Let's look at this cabinet. Let's organize that. Let's throw out some of that stuff. I mean, look, I'm a big proponent of throwing stuff out. People, I mean, I think at a certain level, we all battle certain collectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm telling you, man, anytime that I take time to go and clean stuff out, man, I just feel better.
Oh yeah, and when we clean the kids' room out, good gracious, it feels good to get rid of some of that
It's
junk.
amazing how quickly you can collect stuff.
Oh yeah.
And so went in there yesterday because I had a meeting down there yesterday. And man, went in there, man, I felt proud.
Oh yeah, I mean the fridge you could about see yourself in.
Yes.
Yep.
The stove.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, I said it almost looks brand new.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the deal. I know they felt proud.
Yeah, they told me. They recognize the importance of it, and you know, we've said best is the standard, and that's the phrase that resonated with them from that visit they told me today.
Yeah, so. It's proud. You know, often when you visit Wiesem, okay, Wiesem is our scientist. I've never not gone in the lab where it's just like
pristine,
because he takes pride in it.
Mm-hmm.
And he loves to show you around.
Yeah,
he loves to talk to you, but he takes pride and he takes ownership. And I just seen more and more in life when we make a decision to take ownership, what it does to ourselves and the people around us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've just, made a commitment that, look, I understand ownership. I've taught ownership. I've read about ownership. I value ownership, but it's a deep dive of looking at, am I being accountable and ownership through all areas of my life? And the answer to that is no. But here's the other side of that. I have the ability to change that.
Yeah. Only you.
Only me. And that goes back to, Andrew, how are you managing me? Okay. Well, we talked about before, managing. Managing has to go to owning.
Mm-hmm.
That's the level of responsibility, because here's what I'm going to say this. In leadership, and this is about being uncommon leaders, an uncommon podcast, okay? Are we going to manage this, or are we going to lead it? Because there's a difference. If you're a manager or something, or if you're in management of something that says, okay, most of the time managers often know a process, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They have a skill. They have some area that they feel like this is my strength. But a manager is not a leader. A leader is someone who is responsible for others.
Mm-hmm.
And so a manager often doesn't want to let go of something.
Yeah.
A leader is trying to teach someone to take over something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a difference. And in that leader, as they take it over, and if they were a great manager, they're going to like, look, your job, and I'm going to teach you everything I know. I'm going to teach you how to do this, but it is your job now to management, and lead this area that I was leading. That's the difference between a person who manages it, leads it, and owns it.
Yeah. Somebody who is too protective of information is never going to excel because they're too scared to lose the footing of where they're at. But a true leader wants other people to take that ownership, and then you can get a
true
broader
leader
team.
Understands my job is to own those in my charge.
Mm-hmm.
And to help them be effective of management of their areas.
Mm-hmm.
You have responsibilities, but ultimately you're in my charge. My job as a leader in ownership is to do those things for you. And then it's a downhill effect.
Yeah, it's okay to delegate. I think people are scared to delegate and don't realize the importance of it because guilt, like we talked about before. But if you're not an effective delegator,
you're not a leader.
You can't accomplish big goals.
Delegation is, let me speak on delegation. I love to delegate.
Sure.
Love to delegate.
You have to, or else you can't be effective.
I love it. I mean, but too many people in, quote, management / leadership roles don't delegate because they don't trust people.
Yep.
That's the whole deal. Because here's what I know about myself, Matt. I make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, I failed a lot. Well, if I have, then I have to automatically figure you have.
Sure.
But what we allow too often in people who can't delegate is because they don't trust and they don't allow the freedom of those things.
Mm-hmm.
When the truth is, maybe if they did delegate, that person you delegate to might do it better than you do.
Yeah.
But people who don't delegate, they think nobody can do it the way they can.
That's the truth.
It is. That is exact truth. That nobody could do it as good as they can or the way they can. So here's the other thing about delegation. When you delegate and you're a person who likes to delegate, you do have this kind of expectation that they're at least going to do it to the standards I want, or they're going to think about these things. And it doesn't always happen that way.
No, that's the unfortunate part is when you delegate something out and it comes back where you had it in your head and it's not quite there, it's hard to connect that gap and say, why didn't they think about it the way I thought about it? That's hard to let go of, but you have to.
It is, but a good owner takes ownership of that person and says, hey, I appreciate you taking these steps and these efforts, or they put in the effort to do it. But tell me why, what made you make that decision?
Mm-hmm.
And then allow them to give feedback. And then, then you're able to go and say, kind of, here's where my mind was. And then find that path, because that's a teachable part. An owner is a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership, ownership, teaching, all these things. So where I'm leaving this on is, Matt, I know how critical it is to take ownership in all areas of life. And I know as a reflective person, I don't always do it. But what I'm working on is to be better at it. Going back to, managing myself and saying, okay, these are the things I value. And if I can get that percentage up of those things I'm good at, which is leadership, if I can up my game of ownership, I'll be a more effective leader.
Thanks for joining us today on the Uncommon CEO podcast. Subscribe to our show wherever you get podcasts. We have video episodes on our YouTube channel and more uncommon wisdom on our social media. Find all our links and resources at uncommonceopodcast.com. For Andrew Smart and all of us here at the Uncommon CEO, stay uncommon.